Hey, how you doing? My name is Isa Pulley, and I am a drug and alcohol counselor, and I'm in recovery and have been in recovery for 30 years. So what I wanted to do was come on here and just give you some concepts that will help you. I've been a counselor for 20 years, and I was in the streets for 20 years, so I know from both sides. So if you listen to me, maybe we can help each other, right? How can I help you? I have some information. How can you help me? You don't run my grandmother over when she's trying to cross the street. You don't pull a gun and put it in my uncle's face and take all this money. You understand? You don't run the Medicaid bill up because you're in rehab 7 times, right? You don't catch 5 heart attacks. You don't get lung cancer because you're just smoking on those cancer sticks. You're still smoking on that weed. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's good for you. You understand what I'm saying? We take the fruit, right? We accept the fruit that wise men leave. Not only do we accept that fruit, we run from house to house and on the corner and we sell it to our own people, knowing it's no good. So we want to try to stop that, gain some spirituality, gain some information about the disease of addiction, because the disease of addiction knows everything about you. One thing it knows, one thing we work on this concept, it's called a false narrative. Now, what is a false narrative? Let me tell you. A false narrative is an untrue story, or story that's true. A story that's untrue. For example, right? 3 plus 5 is 7. 3 plus 5 is 7. That's a false narrative. Now, just because it's a false narrative, don't mean somebody didn't try to tell me 3 plus 5 is 7. Doesn't mean that I bought that narrative or didn't buy that narrative before, because I have. Because the guy was very persuasive when he told me 3 plus 5 was 7. He told me that, and he said it with his chest out. You understand what I'm saying? And so I believed it. And I went and I walked down the street with him, knowing that 3 plus 5 was 7, thinking that, and I got my forehead cracked. Why? Because 3 plus 5 is 8. That's the true story. How many times did I suffer behind false narratives? How many times did I believe somebody when they told me? The last thing somebody told me that hurt me was me telling me that I could get high one more time. I could smoke this. I could sniff that. I could shoot this. I could drink that, right? Me telling myself that and me believing it, that was a false narrative. And every time I fall for a false narrative, I suffer. I suffer consequences, which is why we're talking about this, because I don't want you to suffer consequences no more if you don't have to, right? We know that 3 plus 5 is 8. More importantly, we know that 2 plus 2, let me help you, right? 2 plus 2 equals what? 2 plus 2, 4, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? We know that. We bought that narrative a long time ago, and they proved that narrative to us when we was a child, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. So let me ask you this question. Being that we all know 2 plus 2 is 4, how come we making it 5? How come we're making it 6? Why are we making 2 plus 2 3, right? What do you mean, Issa? I'm going to tell you. If 2 plus 2 is 4, let me tell you what that means. I can't use drugs no more, right? Every time I use drugs, I'm going to suffer a consequence, right? 2 plus 2 is 3 means I could use a drug and I'm not going to suffer a consequence. Or I can use a drug and I don't care about the consequence, right? And let's be honest. Everybody says they don't care about the consequence until they have to suffer the consequence. Then they don't want to suffer the consequence. They want somebody to come in and mitigate the circumstances behind the consequence. But those consequences are yours. If you buy 3 plus 5 is 7, if you buy that, you deserve the consequences. If you think 2 plus 2 is 7, you deserve the consequences. And the bad part about that is you sell that shit to your family. 2 plus 2 is 5. 2 plus 2 is 7. You sell it to them, right? And they buy it. Let me give you an example. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. For instance, relapse is part of recovery, right? Relapse is part of recovery. Is that true? If you bought that, for me, maybe there's people out there that believe that. For me, relapse is part of recovery. That's a false narrative, right? That's a story that's not true. That's something I cannot afford to believe, right? I can't afford to believe it. It's just not true, right? That would be a luxury for me to believe that relapse is part of recovery, because I'm in recovery. And if I'm in recovery and relapse is part of it, that means sooner or later I can relapse. And that'll be normal and natural. And everybody be like, it's part of it. Part of it. Right? I can't afford to agree with that. I can't afford to believe that. I have to know and I have to live that this is a false narrative. It's a false narrative. It cannot be true for me. If it is true for me, that means it's true for my family. It means it's true for my kids. It means it's true for my woman. It's true for society. It's true for my job. All these people are going to be affected if I believe that shit. Right? My woman's going to lose a good man. My kids are going to lose a good father. Right? I might not die, but I ain't going to be no good to them. Right? Society's going to lose a good man. My job is going to lose a good employee. All these people are suffering because I bought a bullshit narrative. I bought that. I can't afford to do that. I don't have that luxury. Now, when I first started going with my woman, right? If I walked up to her and said, you know, I'm an addict and I'm charming as hell, right? You know, obviously, right? So I'm charming as hell. So she wants to be with me and I'm talking to her. I then put the hook in her mouth and then pulled. Then I roll up on her and I say, by the way, I'm in recovery. She goes, oh, that's good. How long have you been clean? I say, I've been clean for 20 years. But I need you to know this. Relapse is part of recovery. And she buys it? Oh, baby. Oh, oh, baby. I got me a live one, don't I? That means I can crack her forehead, right? That means I can take her money. That means she's going to look out for me. I got a place to stay. I got a car to drive. She's going to lend me some money. She's going to help me get high. She's going to help me get high and she's going to help me recover. She's down for that. She buys that. But if she says to me, right, because she knows it's a false narrative, what kind of bullshit are you trying to run across me? That sounds like some bullshit right there. You're telling me you're clean for 20 years, but in the future, you could very well relapse? That's not a good bet for me. I'm going to have to pass on this one. I'm going to pass on you, right? Because you're not a good bet. Now, I know a lot of people out there are going to be angry at this. I know they're going to be angry. They think that relapse is part of recovery because somebody told them, the big book, the little book, I don't know. Somebody said that. I didn't. I'm never going to say it. Relapse is not part of recovery. This is not part of mine. And if it's part of yours, I don't know. I'm not going to do too much more right now because that's a big concept unto itself, right? False narratives. Don't fall for them. I'm going to see you again.